we go.
We're live.
Okay, now I'm moving back with a cat in my lap. We'll see how long this lasts.
Cats everywhere.
Nope, I didn't. Alrighty. You coming up, sir?
You don't know what he's doing.
He doesn't.
But good evening, Facebook.
Facebook, yes.
And our friends from the Vibe Radio Network will be joining us very shortly. But hope everybody is doing well.
Sir?
That is the power cord, sir. Do not. It's going to be one of those nights, apparently.
Your show will go live in 5 seconds. 4, 3, 2, 1.
And now we're live with everybody.
Well,
Blog Talk Radio.
now we are.
Okay.
Now we are. Now we got everybody.
Alright.
So, hi, everybody.
Hi, it's been 2 weeks. Chris and I just got back from a cruise early this morning.
Yep. We rolled into the house almost at 2 a.m.
Yeah.
So it was a fantastic vacation.
Yep.
We're tired.
Exhausted. We feel like we still are on the cruise ship, so everything's kind of going like this for us.
Yep.
And we got cats who are
happy to have us home.
Yes.
We'll go with that.
Happy to have cuddle time again and a little bit of mischievous time.
We're happy to be home, though.
Yes, but happy Valentine's Day to everybody.
Ah, yes, it is that day.
We don't celebrate.
Yeah.
We celebrate tomorrow when everything's 50% off.
What do we do? Last year we did a what was it? Love, Roses, Chocolate, and Death episode.
Yes, we did.
Yes, we did.
I wasn't doing that again this year.
No. This year we have something completely different.
Yeah, we've haunted New England this year. So.
Yep. Patrick's with us. He says, "Hope the cats don't burn down the house. Playing with power cords is a bad idea."
Yes.
Yeah.
He was going after the Velcro part, but it was still attached to the power cord.
Yeah. And now he's going to eat cardboard over here off to the side. So if you hear that...
By the way, the girls are here. They're on the couch over here, sleeping.
Napping. Maybe just barely. I don't know if you can see now.
No, Una is right here. She's in this blanket here.
Yeah.
Lulu's in the corner over here.
So we're got everybody here and accounted for.
And Vincent is enjoying the fire behind me.
Yeah, I think you can see him just barely.
He's
down there.
right down there.
Yep. But anyways, yeah. So happy Monday, everybody, and hope everybody's work week is off to a decent start.
Yes.
Or at the very least, if you're one day closer to next weekend.
Chris is very happy. He worked one of his 4 days this week.
Yeah.
Of course, he realized he didn't find out until later today that he has Friday off, and he's very happy.
Yeah, works for me.
And that's Mom, I think.
Yep. Hi, Mom. They just want you to think that they're sleeping.
Plotting.
They're plotting.
They're plotting to take over the world.
They're always plotting.
All right.
So yeah, we got a bunch of stories from the primary contingent of states up there that makes up New England. So we're not going to be hitting every single state.
No, but there's plenty of material for part 2 and 3 and 4.
Yeah, so there will be more. But we are talking about the area that is comprised of Connecticut, Maine, Massachusetts,
Vermont,
New Hampshire, Rhode Island, and Vermont. We got those 6 states. And now this is, of course, one of the areas where what we now know as the United States started to flourish. Of course, lots of early colonies up there in the New England area, and they brought with them, as they came over, plenty of their own lore from the old world, if you will, and some of that lore manages to mingle with the the bizarre and sometimes grim experiences that people had as they came over across the ocean. And, you wind up getting a whole new bumper crop of very bizarre, unusual, and macabre stories from this area that we know as New England. And, okay. That was weird. Sorry about that. I don't know what our TV is doing. But
our TV, it's a new TV, and every now and then it turns on.
No, weird. I swear I don't know what's going on here. Sorry about this. Oh my god, this is kind of embarrassing. Off.
Stay off this time. I'll blame it on the ghost in my house. How about that one?
It might be. I don't know what's going on.
We're literally not touching the remote. It's next to Chris. It's next to the computer. His hand wasn't anywhere near it, and it turned on twice on its own.
Yeah. Haunted TV. Nice bonus here.
Okay, moving on.
Moving on. Hopefully that'll be the last of it. But anyways, yes. So yeah, Patrick points out that, yes, the Puritans, yeah, they kind of had their whole thing going on. But actually, yeah, the stories, they wind up evolving through the years. And of course you get a whole new crop of stories the further along you go. And this next one
This one's actually kind of near and dear to my heart. I grew up in Vermont. That's where my dad retired to, and we would often go to New Hampshire for hiking or just visiting, that sort of thing. And once I saw this one, I was like, I want to go to New Hampshire, and I want to go find this ruin where this house used to be and where this ghost story is, because it literally is known as the staircase in the woods. And it just rises up, and you can go in the fall with the leaves are gorgeous and do a fantastic photo shoot, and I want to go do that now. Not to mention she is a costume designer for Broadway, so near and dear to my heart. So this is Madame Sherri's castle in Chesterfield, New York. A picture's worth 1,000 words. A sweeping arched staircase constructed of stone, fallen leaves strewn along its steps, curving upward to end mid-air amidst the forest. The ruins that are known as Madame Sherri's Castle Ruins is truly a sight to behold. But the location might surprise you. It's an awe-inspiring relic that is far from its European castle cousins, as I said, in Chesterfield, New Hampshire. Set off the appropriately named Castle Road, you cross the footbridge and head to Anne Stokes Loop, a trail that extending almost 2 miles through both the Madame Sherri Forest and Cook Town Forest. When the path splits, veer to the right, and you will catch your first glimpse of these ruins. It seems improbable, really. You wouldn't expect to find the remains of a castle tucked into the southwest corner of the Granite State, yet there it is. Stories swirl around these ruins as its former occupant, and a story with all the elements of a good novel. Fame, wealth, tragedy, and mystery. And of course, the ghosts that are there as well. Madame Antonia Sherri was born Antoinette Barrymore in France of 1878. She left Paris Cabaret in 1911 for a life in New York theater. She also changed her name around this time when she married Andre Riala, the son of an Italian diplomat and a silent movie star actor. In New York, the two began to design costumes for Broadway plays, including the famous Ziegfeld Follies, for which you might remember us touching upon when we did our Haunted Broadway back in August. The two's venture, House of Sherri, was accredited with various costume innovations spurred on by Sherri's creative flair. During the time, the couple hired a struggling performer, Charles Lemaire, as their assistant. He would go on to win 4 different Academy Awards for his costume designs. Purportedly, he didn't forget who taught him, and it's rumored he had supported Sherri many years after he left her stewardship. Sadly, in 1927, just 16 years after their marriage, Andre died, possibly from toxicity of bootleg alcohol or syphilis. He left alone after his death. Sherri continued her eccentric life. 2 years later, she purchased a small farmhouse on the side of Rattlesnake Mountain and began buying up adjoining acreage, fueling her second love, the forest just off the Gulf Road in Chester, New Hampshire. Sherri would live in a small farmhouse devoid of many modern amenities for 17 years. But the farmhouse would not do for hosting guests, as she set her sights on building a castle in the middle of the woods. During the turbulent construction period, she reportedly nagged many of the contractors about minor details until they quit. And rumors began to circulate about her. It was said she would be chauffeured around town in a cream-colored Packard with nothing but a fur coat, and accompanied, of course, by her pet monkey. It was also said that the Madame in her name was there for literal reasons. A continuous cycle of beautiful women coming and going at the house had the locals believing she ran a brothel. Okay, unplug that. This is a little unnerving. Seriously, unplug that thing.
Theater seats have an ergonomic
This is
design
weird.
that features fully padded arms and backs,
Ouch.
and watch movies in enhanced detail and clarity on this 86-inch smart 4K TV that offers multi-different
Unplug it.
I will get there.
films are included.
First, I just want to get the sound off. There. The ghost is busy tonight. Okay, I'll get there.
Alright. In spite of her obsessive focus on detail and her offbeat ways, the castle in the woods was eventually finished. Upon its completion, one of the visitors said that it was a theatrical French chateau of New Hampshire stone, wreathed in Roman arches and crowned with a chalet roof. An imposing stone staircase, grand enough for a Follies stage set, had stone flower boxes with red and white flowers earning the name the Primrose Path. The main stairs cut into the rock ledge, leading to a massive red front door. Adding to the atmosphere, there was even supposed to be a tree growing through the center of the house and out of the roof. Sherri's mantra was purportedly only the best, and for years she threw wildly lavish parties at her castle, hosting eclectic bands of friends from the city. But the fun ended only a few years after it began, as Sherri's money simply dried up. It was not long before she was a ward of the state, leaving her palace in the woods to succumb to nature. She was placed in a nursing home in Brattleboro, Vermont in 1950 and died in 1965 at the age of 84.
For the ghost.
For the ghost. Okay, the ghost now has whiskey. I hope it's a whiskey-drinking ghost.
Hopefully.
With no one to take care of the property, the castle soon became the victim of vandalism until it caught fire in 1962, just 3 years before Sherri herself passed. The fire ripped away the walls and the roof of the castle, but left the stone foundation in place, which still stands there today. On the day she died, she sold the property to Anne Stokes. Some say it was an act to preserve her connection to the land that would extend beyond the grave. Today, the Society for Protection of New Hampshire Forests owns the 500-acre Madame Sherri Forest, and it is now open to the public. The castle ruins, stone archways, fireplace and chimney, columns, and stone staircase rising from the forest floor are all said to be haunted by the spirit of Madame Sherri. Legend says that the lady herself, dressed to the nines, has been spotted atop the grand staircase, which some refer to as the stairway to heaven. And that if you listen closely, you'll hear faint strains of laughter and music coming from the ruins. It's easy to imagine her making the grand entrance on that elegant set of stairs, especially when the scent of perfume wafts down the staircase. And then a brief flicker disappearing into the mist that blankets the forest floor. Many people who have climbed the stairs recall the feelings of dread, and there have been reports of seeing a misty human figure around the grounds of the castle. Electronic voice phenomenon and spirit boxes have also resulted in stunning results, such as the words Madame Sherri have been captured as evidence on the ground of the Madame's one-time home. It seems that Sherri and her raucous guests may not be ready to abandon that luxurious playground in those New Hampshire woods.
Dun, dun, dun.
As I said, I want to go hiking here in the fall.
Place looks really cool.
It looks gorgeous.
So, one day.
Road trip.
Add it to the list.
Road trip.
Another road trip. But yeah, I again apologize for the...
Apparently it's not happy we turned off the Olympics for this show.
It's turned itself back on.
To Wheel
Twice.
of Fortune.
Well, yeah, there's that. But twice. It's turned itself back on twice. And no, it definitely was not the cats. Well, maybe it's the ghost of the cat enjoyed watching that TV with her. Oh, yeah. It could have been. I don't know. But TV is volume is off now, so even if it turns itself back on, at least it'll just
Yeah.
hopefully be quiet. And as much as I appreciate Drew Carey and The Price is Right,
It doesn't fit the theme tonight.
it does not fit the theme. It does not need to be playing in the background. And it's doing it again. Okay, this is weird. I have no idea what's going on here. Here. You play with it. Anyways. Yeah, exactly. See? Told you. Weird. Alright, so. Next up, we are staying in New Hampshire for this next one. And, like the saying, you know, there is the older places, the more ghosts seem to like it. I mean, kind of makes sense. You know, more history, more opportunity. You know, more people come through, more opportunity to have a little bit of a spirited afterlife around it. And the Amos J. Blake house is nearly 200 years old, so it's got a few years on it, and it's located in Fitzwilliam, New Hampshire. The house was originally a combined store and home built back in 1837. Nearly 30 years after its construction, Amos J. Blake purchased the property for his home and law office. And in 1966, it was given over to the care of the Fitzwilliam Historical Society. Today it is a museum, so visitors are welcome, but ghost hunters should be respectful and coordinate with the museum staff. While the spooky stories surrounding the museum are not a secret, the Historical Society doesn't want to seem to encourage them to be the main attraction. They would, of course, like the Historical Society, like to focus on the history. Kind of makes sense. But if you are polite enough and ask about the spirits of the museum, some of the staff members might be willing to chat with you. One day, the museum curator was completing a little maintenance on the museum floor when she realized that she wasn't quite alone. When she looked up, there was a small cat approaching her, its tail twitching about in a friendly and inviting manner. The curator, being fond of felines, reached for her camera to get a picture of her furry visitor. However, before she could grab a hold of the camera, the cat disappeared before her very eyes. Local lore about ghosts at the Fitzwilliam Historical Society go well beyond phantom felines. Ghost cat aside, there are believed to be at least 11 other spirits at the historic building, with at least one in every room. Given the level of care exhibited in maintaining the structure and its historic authenticity, there is little surprise that so many spirits might feel compelled to hang around in the familiar digs. Every room in the perfectly preserved house is filled with antiques and artifacts from the days when Amos Blake walked the land. Now, Amos Blake was a prominent man in Fitzwilliam in the mid-1800s. Besides being a lawyer, he was also a community leader and a state legislator. He purchased the house in 1865 and used one of the front rooms as his law office. And when he died in 1925, his son Leroy transferred his insurance business to the home and assumed residence. While Amos was a pillar of the community, his son Leroy was better known as a ladies' man and, well, as well as a hoarder, which are two personality traits that
They normally don't go together.
No, but hey, more power to you, I guess. When he winds up passing away in the 1960s, each room was jam-packed with stuff. While there were pathways to move about, there was scarcely room to breathe amongst the massive piles. The piles were sifted through, though, and some number of artifacts were maintained. Amongst the artifacts that were saved and restored for display is Amos's original office desk and furniture. His desk sits in front of the window, outfitted with tools of the trade. An old telephone sat beside an old inkwell, and items that actually once belonged to the Blake family. On the second floor, which was once divided into apartments, each room is a treasure filled with antiques from the era. One room is filled with old toys, cribs with creepy, lifelike dolls. We all know how much we love dolls. Along with a glass showcase filled with delicate old playthings. In the wee hours when no one is around to play with the antique toys, the caretakers have come back to find the toys out of place, as if the hands of some unseen children have taken them up from their display place and left them on the floor halfway across the room, as children who do not clean up after themselves are inclined to do. Other items in the house seem to move about on their own volition as well. A catnip toy brought in for the ghost cat is frequently found in various places throughout the house, as if the spirited feline had been playing with it. A shadow person has also been photographed in this part of the museum as well. In the part of the museum that has been restored to the appearance of a country store, a chain that limits access to guests will sometimes swing of its own volition, as if a long-past shopkeeper is still moving about and going about his business. Another room is dedicated to a well-respected local doctor. Dr. George Emerson practiced medicine in the town for many years during the earlier part of the last century. After he died in the late 1950s, his son donated his equipment to the museum, including an old wheelchair, medical instruments, and medicine bottles, including several labeled snake oil and liver pills. An odd doll was propped up on a shelf. Supposedly this figure was kept by the doctor to help teach new mothers about caring for their children. Yeah, creepy. Then there is a historically accurate bedroom display with an old-fashioned stenciling on the walls and an antique rope bed centered in the room. Another room on the top floor was a costume room with beautiful dresses and outfits from every era of the late 1800s and early 1900s. Then there is a room dedicated to the Fitzwilliam Band with various instruments and uniforms displayed around the room. Next door to that room is the military room, with artifacts and uniforms from various wars, including the Revolutionary War, the Battle of Gettysburg, and World Wars I and II. And on display is a cape that was worn by a general to George Washington's commemorative service in 1800, one of the oldest artifacts of the building. One of the most interesting rooms is the old schoolhouse room, however. Over the course of the past decades, the museum has collected an assortment of old school desks and antiques, including a photo of George Washington, an old wall clock, and a teacher's desk. On one tour of the room, a guide had heard a noise behind them as they addressed the group. When they turned around to face the chalkboard, they found several chalk lines on the board that were not previously there. Mediums who have visited the building have described an entire cadre of spirits lingering about, particularly in the attic. All manner of men, women, and children are believed to be lingering about the home. There is a grumpy older gentleman who keeps to himself, a woman that loves to dance, and of course the children who play with whatever they can get their hands on. Spirit box sessions held in the attic have received some interesting and some might consider chilling responses. When asked who their favorite tour guide was, a spirited response came back saying, "Someone like you." You're my favorite. Another response came through unprovoked as investigators were exploring an office space. While studying a piece of equipment and trying to figure out how it worked, a would-be helpful voice piped up and said, "Come look at that." Fortunately, it's that helpful, playful, and friendly nature that seems to epitomize the paranormal activity at the Fitzwilliam Historical Society, a museum that is as haunted as it is historical.
We missed some comments. They're too far away for me to read.
Oh, Patrick shared a picture of the Historical Society. Pretty place. And another ghost cat. Of course, we need to go visit the ghost cats.
I'm good at finding those stories.
Everybody loves ghost cats. Real cats, ghost cats, or, well, I guess ghost cats are real, but
yep.
They're spirited cats.
Spirited cats.
Spirited cats, lively cats like ours. Cats, cats, cats. And thank you, Donnie. Good to see you, and appreciate the welcome back to our chilly Virginia. But we do have a nice fire in the fireplace, and our blankets and the warm kitty cats that are willing to cuddle with us. So.
And they're not trouncing each other.
No questions, just entertainment. No worries. Also, cats are awesome whether living or not. Yes, absolutely.
So when I was researching the different stories, I vaguely recalled the story from my childhood. And I could not remember where it was, because we grew up in the town I went to high school in, and we had a covered bridge, and of course they're all over Vermont, and it's kind of a staple of Vermont. But I couldn't remember where this one was located, and then I found the story. So this is known as Emily's Bridge in Stowe, Vermont, which is of course a big ski town. And it's no ordinary bridge, of course. Granted, it's covered, and it's got its charm and its mystery about it, as do the other hundreds of covered bridges in the New England area. But this one has more mystery than charm about it. Stories swirling around this particular bridge could be the basis for a good horror movie or a TV series. For all appearances, the bridge looks normal. It's just another bridge on a brook that was built in the 19th century. But the first clue that something isn't typical about this bridge is right in the name. Who's Emily? Because the official name of the bridge is the Goldbrook Covered Bridge. So what did Emily do to get the bridge named after her? At first glance, it's rustic, it's unremarkable, it's a covered bridge, like the myriad of others that are found nearby. It doesn't look haunted. It was built in 1844. This simplistic, one-lane, 50-foot span is the oldest covered bridge in the country. country. Its builder was John N. Smith of nearby Moscow, Vermont, an obscure hamlet within the town of Stowe. It's bragged that it would last forever. Perhaps he was right. But this bridge is infamous for its resident ghost rather than the historical and structural accomplishments. So about Emily, why does she haunt the bridge? And of course, that's going to remain a mystery because nobody knows who she is. The most commonly told story is that Emily was a young Stowe woman in the 1800s who fell in love with a man, and of course, for whatever reasons unknown to her, her parents disapproved. Her family forbid her to marry. In retaliation, the two love-struck teenagers decided to elope on the Goldbrook Bridge at midnight. Emily made it to the bridge and waited, and the appointed hour came and went. The man never showed up. She was devastated. She couldn't go back home. Everybody would find out what happened, and she would be humiliated as well as heartbroken. Seeing no other way out, she hanged herself on a rafter of the bridge. Now in spirit form, she lurks inside the bridge, still waiting for her long-departed lover, getting angrier and more hopeless by the year. Emily's Bridge seems to be a sore subject for many Stowe's residents. There is an ordinance in place now not to allow people to visit the site at night. While Stowe likes the attention gained with the tourism industry, Emily's Bridge draws the sort of attention many residents do not want. But the two are hopelessly tangled up together. As it turns out, Vermont's most famous ghost story is not only a well-spun yarn, but the real story of Emily's Bridge is far better than the conventional one. The true story of Emily's Bridge doesn't go back to the 1800s, but rather much more recently, 1970s. A woman by the name of Nancy Wolfstead claimed that she was the one who created the story of Emily to scare the local youth. There was a swimming hole somewhere near Stowe and Morrisville. She remembers making up the story of the bridge to amuse the kids. At the time, there was a huge surge in the occult and the paranormal in popular culture, especially with the films like The Exorcist that had recently debuted. She was also one who came up with the name Emily. Curiously enough, with a little digging, uncovered no information about any Emily that has been found prior to 1970. What Nancy probably didn't expect, however, was that her story grew in popularity. It soon spread far beyond the limits of Stowe, and it's quite possible that the story of Emily's Bridge became fixated in the paranormal concrete when a local tour company opened up and the bridge and Emily became part of the presentation.
Oops. Somebody didn't do adequate research.
As I said, I grew up in the 90s, late 80s and in the early 90s in Vermont. And I had heard about this story. So 20 years, and it was already in the middle of Vermont.
I would equate it to our Richmond vampire story.
Probably.
Which we very much present as...
This is lore.
This is local lore, which is not necessarily based in...
Yeah, there might be a few tidbits here and there, but most of it's
individual
not true.
tidbits of the story, but we do not subscribe to the theory that there truly was a vampire running around Richmond in 1925.
Yeah. So while there are no records of anyone named Emily dying on the Gold Brick Bridge, a tragedy did take place there. It happened around 1920 when a little girl fell off the bridge and died when her skull was dashed off the boulders below. There are reports from people who have tea with an elderly woman who lives near the bridge, and she remembers when the accident on the Gold Bridge happened. She was about 10 years old at the time. To make matters more interesting, Gold Brick Bridge may not even be the real Emily's Bridge. There used to be another covered bridge just down the road near the Nicholas Farm near Route 100 until it burned down in 1932, and it was replaced by the current concrete span that is still in use today. There were brief records of a death happening on the old covered bridge, but the details were lost with time. Could this have been the real Emily Bridge? If there is a ghost, it's possibly that after that bridge burned down, the ghost sought refuge upstream at the Gold Brick Bridge, which is now Stowe's last remaining covered bridge. Or maybe the legend is just simply transplanted from the other bridge. It seems the story is just that, a legendary bridge which has burned itself into the memory of many and isn't the location it is most identified with. But there is more to this story. Reports kept claiming that Emily's Bridge was haunted and didn't always manifest themselves into local folklore until 1948, many years after the aforementioned suicide of Emily. The bridge became known as the Haunted Bridge, but the story of Emily didn't exist yet. So if the bridge had a reputation, and perhaps visitors were getting frightened by something entirely different. So, what is that? Some of the theories about Emily. So, after Emily hanged herself for being stood up, other things, possibly. Number one, on the day of her marriage, she was trampled to death by runaway horses.
That's pretty bad. Pretty rough.
Yep. Number two, she was on her way to the wedding, her horse bolted, threw her out of the wagon, or off its back, and she fell to her death on the rocks below the bridge. Maybe. Number three, Emily was unattractive, middle-aged, and pregnant. Her boyfriend jumped off the bridge and died. Later, Emily had twins who soon died. Heartbroken, Emily threw herself off the bridge and died.
That's like the opposite of Romeo and Juliet.
Number four, her boyfriend fell in love with another girl and never showed up at the bridge, humiliating her. That's plausible. Number five, Emily began dating her lover and she became pregnant. Excited to break the news, she told him to meet her at the bridge. He didn't take it the way she expected and was furious. Emily was humiliated, brokenhearted, and venomously told him that if he left her, she would tell everyone in town. At her threat, he acted hastily and murdered her on the bridge to silence her forever. Some stories say he left town, other stories say his guilty conscience got the better of him and he committed suicide. We warned you this is good for a horror movie or a TV series.
They're all a piece of work.
Anyway, so, if any of these would have been the case, there had to have been an eyewitness who saw these events unfold on the bridge, or how would these details be known, right? There's no witnesses, no reports were ever made of a murder on the bridge, and perhaps there are even more stories than that no one can actually find any real history to back them up. And of course we all know if it's on the internet it's true, right?
Oh, of course. Everything on the internet's true.
Well, if this was enough to ponder, if Emily did in fact commit suicide on the bridge, How would she have done so? The rafters of the bridge are a good height from the wooden plank floor. She would have had to make some effort to climb out on one, and if she hadn't done that, that meant she would have broke the rope with her, meaning this would have been premeditated suicide. No rope was ever found dangling from the bridge. So it kind of rules that out. Now, when we rule all this out, how can we have claims of the paranormal activity where no murder takes place, no suicide takes place? Why? Remember, the legend of Emily was proven to be nothing more than a hoax. So what accounts for this? Well, let's start with what are the accounts. All of the encounters have been reported are various and range from benign to terrifying. The most common occurrence are photos taken by tourists that fail to not come out. Or perhaps the photographer will notice the pictures are including puzzling, blurry blemishes that weren't present when they took the photos. Some even have photos that are said to include the ghostly image of a girl standing in front of the bridge who was not there at the time of the photo. Others have seen inexplicable things like flashes of white light and no traceable source. Others have heard a disembodied voice coming from nowhere, uttering words that can't be understood. But in the rare occasion a voice can be understood, it is said to sound like a woman crying for help. Some occurrences are more aggressive, perhaps even malevolent. Hats are whisked away on windless days. Temperatures in the bridge are known to be inexplicably warmer or colder than the temperatures outside. One famous tale includes a man witnessing his windshield fog up on its own and handprints appearing on the windshield, but no one was around to make the prints. Then encounters started to get more violent. In the old days, horses that crossed the bridge would unaccountably bolt in fear as phantom bloody gashes would appear on their bodies, and they were looking like somebody just raked nails across them. When the horse traffic was replaced with automobiles, the paint jobs would be ruined by the same invisible claws, and even people have reported getting scratched. One group of teenagers even go as far as to claim they saw Emily. As they parked their car on the bridge, they said a form of a woman appeared in front of their car and began to approach them. Terrified, they scrambled to lock their doors. She stood outside, jingling the handles for a few minutes, trying to get in. With no luck, her form eventually dissipated into the night air. Other weird things have said to have happened, of course, around the bridge. Gold Brook is a beautifully rocky brook that runs underneath and has some sort of bizarre property attached to it. Some claim that on certain days phantom music, which is said to be resembling wind chimes or a soft strumming of a harp, can be heard coming from underneath the bridge. But when curious investigators go to find the source, they cannot. Now what's going on here? What can we make of all this? Could it really be Emily, or perhaps another ghost who died on the bridge a long time ago? Perhaps Emily's Bridge is a geographical area with strange supernatural properties where unexplainable occurrences are said to manifest, and maybe even portals to other worlds are said to reside. Or maybe it's just the product of an overactive imagination inspired by curiosity and an infamous urban legend. As I said, there's no concrete answer and no way to know for sure. The story of Emily's Bridge is countless, and the countless other historical facts, variants, and paranormal claims from people are so large in number and so conflicting that it's almost impossible to pick apart the pieces and find the true story. So, we'll leave it up to you. Is Emily an immortal tale that was thrown together at a spur of moment by somebody trying to entertain children? Or do we have a ghost here that we just don't know about and has assumed this name Emily that has been placed upon it?
So, Donnie points out that folklore comes to life after being told repeatedly.
Yes.
I think this is a prime example.
This is a great example of that.
Prime example of this. And, speaking of that, and since I didn't mention the Richmond vampire during this, I do want to give a little shout out before I forget.
Yes.
So I think we've mentioned this book before. Return of the Richmond Vampire by John Rickstraw. So he went ahead, this Return of the Richmond Vampire, it is a work of fiction, a fantasy type work of fiction that is set in a real world setting, namely being Richmond, amongst a couple other places that are thrown in as well, but mostly Richmond. And fantastic book. It was what I took for my recreational reading on our trip.
I haven't read it yet.
And very, very good book. And I don't just say that because he reached out to us and asked to include our names and haunts of Richmond in the book, which is kind of cool. I was a little skeptical, but it's cool. We're in a book. So yeah, there's that. And the story, if you like fiction, fantasy fiction, vampire stories, stuff like that, excellent book. I do recommend picking it up. Again, that's Return of the Richmond Vampire by John Rickstraw. So,
Alright, you got room up there for that?
I will figure this out.
Since Nico wants cuddles.
Yes, Nico wants cuddles. Vincent wants cuddles. Oh, and Patrick heard wind chimes. Yeah, another snafu, forgot to silence my phone and you are hearing our Ring camera.
Somebody's walking by the skeleton display.
Yeah.
Which is coming down at the end of the week.
I totally...
We're tired, folks. We're really tired.
A little tired. Yeah, definitely having some technical issues this evening, but glad to have you all here. Thank you for sticking it out with us here as we move on to another state. So we're going to go a little bit south. Bye, Nico. All right. I'm talking too much, apparently. So we are going to go down south of Vermont, New Hampshire, down to Connecticut. And now, cemeteries have always held a certain eerie fascination for many. I mean, ourselves included. We love touring, checking out beautiful cemeteries wherever we go. Just so many stories with them. And this one in particular in Connecticut may be creepier than most. It is frequently named one of the most haunted graveyards in all of America. Nestled at a crossroads in Easton, Connecticut, Union Cemetery dates back more than 400 years, and its ghosts have been terrifying passers-by and ghost hunters for decades. There are believed to be many spirits in the graveyard, including soldiers and giggling children. Again, children. But most famous haunts at Union Cemetery are the White Lady and Red Eyes. Now, nobody is quite sure who the White Lady is. Some think she could be the ghost of a woman who died in childbirth and is still searching for her baby. Others speculate that it's the ghost of a woman who murdered her husband. The White Lady could also be the ghost of a murder victim who was dumped in a sinkhole near the cemetery. No matter her origins, she is often sighted on Route 59, which runs along the cemetery's eastern boundary. The people who have seen her say that she's dressed in a bright white nightgown and has had her head and face concealed with a white bonnet. In the 1990s, a firefighter responding to a call in the nearby town of Monroe said a woman in a long white gown jumped in front of him and he hit her. According to the Monroe Sun, the woman rolled over the top of his car and landed in the road behind him. When the firefighter leapt from his vehicle to render first aid, his hood was dented, but there was nobody there. The cemetery's other famous ghost, known as Red Eyes, sometimes peers at people from behind the bushes. Some visitors have reported feeling hot breath on the back of their necks, and when they turn around, they see mysterious red eyes peering back at them. Occasionally, this ghost even chases people in the cemetery. Red Eyes is believed to be the ghost of Earl Kellogg, a man who was set on fire and burned to death across the street from the cemetery in 1935. The haunting of Union Cemetery drew the attention of famed demonologist Ed and Lorraine Warren, who visited the cemetery on several occasions and compiled their findings into a 1992 book, Graveyard: True Hauntings from an Old New England Cemetery. Ed Warren, who also investigated the Amityville Horror House, reportedly caught the White Lady in photographs and videos. Lorraine Warren told NBC Connecticut in 2008 that the video evidence is so valuable she kept it locked away at their occult museum in Monroe. Visit only if you dare. According to the Monroe Sun, the graveyard is closed after dark and the town police will write tickets for trespassing. Although tickets from the local place may be the least of your worries.
Yeah.
Shall I keep going?
Yes.
Okay. So, we're going to go back up to the north and a little, or about a lot to the east, about as far east as you can go. We're going up to Maine.
Because Maine.
Because Maine. And it's here that we have Battery Steele Military Reserve. And it rests in a marsh at the southeastern side of Peaks Island on the ocean edge of Casco Bay in Portland, Maine. Completed in 1942, Battery Steele was built to replace aging structures throughout the coastal defenses of the United States. On Peaks Island, as part of the defenses, there totaled 58 military structures known as the Pikes Island Military Reservation. Among these structures were gun emplacements, range-finding bunkers, fire control posts, barracks, watchtowers, and searchlight bases. Today, out of the original 58 structures that were on the island, many do still exist, but nowhere close to those original numbers. Outside of the Battery Steele gun emplacement, the fire control towers still stand, and the range-finding bunkers stare out at the ocean. And various other buildings of differing uses dot the 14-acre site. Some of the structures have been incorporated into private residences, and some sit on private land not available to the public. Others are part of the Peaks Island Land Preserve, which is open to anyone for exploration. With hiking trails and markers pointing out military sites of historical significance, the previous military compound offers well-groomed trails to explore and hike. The structure of Battery Steele is dark and tomb-like, so make sure you bring a flashlight. The structures are built into berms with a 300-foot cement corridor connecting the previous gun emplacements. Concrete walls 18 inches thick shut out all the light. Rooms that bump out of the long, darkened hallway have graffiti adorning their surfaces. One room down a set of stairs is flooded with water 4 to 5 feet deep. Battery Steele has gained National Registry of Historic Places status in recent years. It is an important part of Peaks Island in military history. Although the guns are gone from the structures, the buildings still stand as if waiting for an attack. In recent history, the monolithic structure of Battery Steele was used to host the alternative art installment of Sacred and Profane. Lasting over a week, performance art, environmental art exhibits, and many other modern sculpture and abstract art adorned the dark spaces. This event no longer exists, but the artwork still remains on the walls of some of the rooms. The cold, dark corridors are said to be haunted by former soldiers. Many of the island's 858 permanent inhabitants have stories of ghostly encounters inside Battery Steele and the surrounding marshland. Visitors have reported their cell phones freezing and batteries suddenly draining upon stepping inside the structure. Phone screens go white, red, or black with no prior indication of issues. Many also talk of piercing female screams coming from inside the tunnels and visions of soldiers in uniform telling them to get out. Others have heard child laughing and talking in the underground rooms. Given the literal and metaphorical weight of the structure and its history, any unexpected encounter within its confines is enough to set anyone's hair on end.
Do you mind feeding the fire?
I shall feed the fire, and I shall also check. Yeah, the Warrens did invest a lot of time in their cases. The Warrens are just absolute legends.
Yeah, they
are. Did so much for the paranormal community, and yeah, the name of the ghost, Red Eyes. That kind of definitely.
Yeah. No, thank you.
Yep.
No, thank you.
And onlyinyourstate.com. Patrick shared the link to the remnants of.
Yep.
Battery Steele.
Alright, so we're going to pop down to Massachusetts at the Orleans Waterfront Inn. In 1640s, Nicholas and Constance Snow were one of 7 families who, after being deeded land by Governor Bamford, left Plymouth to settle the Nassau region, which is modern-day Cape Cod. It later became the towns of Wellfleet, Easton, Orleans, and Orleans, Massachusetts. Generations later, the Snow family had become the integral thread of the fabric of Orleans life. In 1797, Isaac Snow was instrumental in the incorporation and renaming of the town of Orleans. In the 1870s, Captain Aaron Snow constructed a wharf and made from timbers of a vessel shipwrecked on the notoriously dangerous Nassau Shoals. The wharf was home to Aaron's schooner, the Nettie M. Rogers, which sailed the New England coast, bringing to Orleans her cargo of oil, grain, and fuel for sale for the townspeople. From this building, his home, and the surrounding buildings, Aaron and his family ran the store. Aaron's son, William H., later moved the family business to the center of Orleans, where to this day it is run under the Snow name by a Snow family member. Aaron died May 10th of 1892, and the original waterfront building, which became known to the locals as Aaron's Folly, remained empty until it was purchased in 1900. During the first 30 years or so of the century, under at least 4 different owners, the building was run as a boarding house. The northeast and southeast wings were added to the structure shortly after World War II, and the building became the first a summer and then a year-round hotel. The doors of the Orleans Inn are open to Orleans residents and visitors. The Mouse family has lovingly restored the inn to its beautiful splendor, and Ed and Laurie Mouse invite you to listen to the tales of the old home has to tell, to steep yourselves in the past and become part of the Orleans Inn's ongoing story. Laurie's father, the late Clifford Gustafson, created the oil paintings on display throughout the inn during the family summer vacations on Rockets Harbor. O'Hannigan's Irish pub was named after Ed's mother, Kathleen, who was born in County Down in Ireland. Ed Moss laughs when he is asked about his award-winning Cape Cod Inn and if it's, of course, haunted. The Orleans Inn reportedly has had experiences of the slamming doors, gusts of inexplicable cold air, footsteps, of course, and these are all things that other old haunted inns boast, but Moss also has a photographic evidence. Sorry, a little tickle in my throat. At Chatham High School, they had a 25th year reunion party. And Moss snapped a photo and later received a copy of it along with a bewildered call from the partygoers. Moss explained that the presence of gliding through the frame was just Hannah, one of the inn's 3 residents' ghosts. In the 1920s, the inn building actually housed a brothel. One of the women was murdered there, and Moss believes it is her ghost, which he named Hannah, that happily occupies the house. He first acquainted himself with Hannah. It was, of course, very innocent enough when that happened. He said he often will sleep on the couch in case guests need something at night. He awoke when he saw a naked woman come down the stairs, and he and the woman exchanged hellos, and then Moss fell back to sleep. He didn't think about the encounter again until he received a phone call from a passing motorist who warned Mouse to put curtains on the 5th floor Belvedere window. He asked why, and the man answered that he could see a naked woman dancing around the room, and she didn't seem to be aware that she was visible from the street. There was no guest in the 5th floor room at the time.
Point of order. He's sleeping on the couch, a naked woman just comes down the stairs, and he's like, "Oh, hey."
I don't know if he thought he was half asleep.
Go back to sleep.
I didn't understand that one either, but whatever. This was taken from an interview that he was in.
If I was sleeping right there on the couch,
I would have been like, "Ma'am, let me get you a robe."
And a naked woman comes walking down the stairs.
I would have been like, "Ma'am, let me get you a robe."
I'm not gonna just fall back asleep. That's definitely something that wakes you up.
Anyway, moving on.
Moving on.
From that point of order. Since that encounter, Hannah has been a reoccurring presence at the inn, and as we said, one of 3. She's known to be a kindly presence who will light candles, open doors, and still tends to dance in the nude. The other spirits, seem to be lingering, and one, of course, is an older lady believed to be the previous owner of the inn from the turn of the century. And there's a man named Fred who is believed to be a bartender who hung himself in the cupola in the 1950s. But Hannah's the most active.
Certainly gets herself the most attention.
Yes.
Like, ma'am, are you okay? Do you need help? Here, take my coat or something.
Yeah. let me give you a blankie.
All right, moving on to something a little more modest, if you will.
Yes.
Not that we're prudish by any means.
No. But it's a fun triangle. How about that? We're going to go for triangles.
We're going to do that.
The serious triangles. Triangle.
So, here, this is a good one. So, some suspect a serial killer while others point a finger at the paranormal, but nobody has been able to fully explain the mysterious disappearances from Vermont's Bennington Triangle. So, Bennington Triangle. Everybody knows about the Bermuda Triangle.
And we talked about the Bridgewater Triangle in Massachusetts.
Yes.
So Vermont has one too, by the way.
Yep. Yeah. So followers of folklore and aficionados of the paranormal are certainly familiar with the Bermuda Triangle, and perhaps even the southeastern Massachusetts Bridgewater Triangle. But one of these lesser-known cousins of these areas infamous for their strange disappearances holds more than its fair share of tantalizing mysteries, and this is that Bennington Triangle of Vermont. Dubbed as such by Vermont author Joseph A. Citro, the Bennington Triangle is a loosely defined area that encompasses the ghost town of Glastonbury, once a small logging community centered on the Eponymous Mountain in southwestern Vermont. Abandoned at the end of the 19th century after the logging boom died down, the greater Glastonbury area is now mostly untouched, pristine wilderness and is considered remote even by Vermont standards. Starting with a string of missing persons over 70 years ago, the now abandoned town has long been the eerie setting of numerous unexplained disappearances, unsolved murders, and bizarre sightings that continue to this day. In 1945, a 5-year span of disappearances began in the Bennington Triangle with the vanishing of Mitty Rivers. A 74-year-old local hunting guide, Rivers led a party of 4 hunters around the area of Hell Hollow in the southwest woods of Glastonbury before he was suddenly lost. After an unsuccessful initial search, many still believed that this knowledgeable woodsman would be able to survive and soon surface in town. However, this was not the case. Soon, more than 300 concerned locals and U.S. Army soldiers dispatched from Massachusetts' Fort Devens and combed through the vast wilderness for 8 days, turning up not a single shred of evidence as to the whereabouts of Rivers. The following year saw arguably the most infamous missing persons case in the history of Vermont, the disappearance of Paula Weldon. Weldon was an 18-year-old student at Bennington College who decided to take a hike a leg of the long trail during Thanksgiving break when most of her peers had returned home for the holiday. Last seen on Sunday, December 1st, 1946, wearing easy-to-spot red and entering the long trail near Glastonbury Mountain, Weldon never showed up for her Monday classes, spurring a massive search party of more than 1,000 people and a reward of $5,000. Despite the large turnout, numerous aircraft utilized, and a variety of assisting law enforcement departments, no clues to her fate were ever discovered. Many, including Weldon's father, criticized the authorities' lack of sophisticated methods in handling the case, which actually served as the catalyst for the founding of the Vermont State Police 7 months later. The case remains open to this day. Exactly 3 years to the day after the vanishing of Paula Weldon, the Bennington Triangle saw one of its more seemingly supernatural disappearances. That day, a 68-year-old man named James T. Tetford boarded a bus to Bennington after visiting relatives in St. Albans, Vermont. Numerous eyewitnesses, including the driver, later confirmed that Tetford had been sitting in his seat as late as the last stop before Bennington. Yet when the bus finally pulled into Bennington, Tedford was nowhere to be found. After he implausibly vanished into thin air while inside a moving vehicle, baffled passengers noted that Tedford's luggage and an open bus timetable remained on his seat. If the witnesses are correct, Tedford would have disappeared from his seat as the bus was traveling down Route 7 through the Bennington Triangle. Nearly a year later, in mid-October 1950, 8-year-old Paul Jepson went missing. He was last seen happily playing in the family pickup truck by his mother, who left to tend to pigs at the dump where she and her husband were caretakers. Then he vanished without a trace. In addition to the hundreds assembled for a search party, a New Hampshire sheriff brought in a bloodhound to sniff out the missing boy. The dog was able to pick up his scent, but abruptly lost the trail at a nearby crossroads, suggesting a possible abduction by a motorist. As the case dragged on without resolution, some suggested that Jepson met an early demise at the hands of his parents and was dinner for the pigs. But in keeping with the eerie feeling of Bennington Triangle, the boy's father told the Albany Times-Union that it was perhaps the lure of the mountains that pulled in his missing son, as the boy had talked of nothing else for days prior to the disappearance. Only about 2 weeks later, 53-year-old Frida Langer, an experienced hiker and survivalist familiar with the area, went missing on the Somerset area of the long trail bordering East Glastonbury. After hiking a brief half-mile with her cousin, Herbert Eisner, Langer fell into a stream and set back to their camp to change her clothes, where her husband was resting with a hurt knee. But neither her husband nor her cousin ever saw her again. Helicopters from the Connecticut Coast Guard and U.S. Army in Massachusetts, as well as local aircraft from citizens and the Vermont Aeronautics Commission, helped search for Langer. As many as 400 people, including the Massachusetts National Guard, meticulously searched the surrounding areas, yet found nothing. But soon they did find something, and this became the only known disappearance of the Bennington Triangle where a body has turned up. 6 months after she went missing, Langer's corpse was found near the Somerset Reservoir, curiously an open area that had been searched extensively numerous times in the previous months. Yet even with a body, the case saw little resolution. The body had decayed so badly that no cause of death could be determined, only fueling further speculation about what kind of a disturbing end she might have met. The intriguing mysteries and unexplained events associated with the Bennington Triangle have caused many to speculate wildly about the possibility of nefarious and perhaps paranormal forces at work, a notion bolstered by alleged UFO and Bigfoot sightings in the region. Others believe that the burst of missing persons between 1945 and 1950 may have been the work of a serial killer, but the sheer lack of evidence to back this up, as well as the variety in the victims' ages and genders, defying that usual pattern of serial killers, likely rules out that theory as well. Others still contend that the disappeared met their demise at the claws of an indigenous mountain cat, such as a lynx, bobcat, or catamount. However, bobcat and lynx are not known to be aggressive to humans, and the catamount has not been credibly sighted since before 1940 and has been since declared extinct. All in all, when trying to tie the disappearances together in hopes of discovering a solution to the mysteries, there is little to go on. The only known similarities between the most well-documented cases in the Bennington Triangle are the close proximity of the disappearances, the time of day when most were last seen, between 3 and 4 p.m., and the time of year when most were last seen, the final 3 months of the year.
Portal.
And with little in the way of evidence, paranormal theories concerning the cases have taken hold. For those interested in the paranormal, such theories dovetail with other more recent odd occurrences in the Bennington Triangle area. These occurrences include terrifying voices allegedly showing up on dead-air radio, sightings of mysterious figures, unexplained navigation mishaps, and planes that mysteriously crashed. Thus, it's no surprise that the Bennington Triangle attracts those with a penchant for the eerie to this day. That's our final story for tonight.
It is.
You can set that over there. Let's see if we got anything here. that is a lot of missing people in that relatively small area.
It is.
Yep.
It is. It's a little crazy when we were researching that one.
Concerning.
Yeah.
Chilling.
And as Chris said, the timing between 3 and 4 p.m. all in the last 3 months of the year, I'm like screaming, "There's a portal! There's a portal there!" Everybody keeps falling into it.
They wound up somewhere else in the multiverse.
They did. They took a little side trip.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna go looking for the portal though.
I got the multiverse on my mind. The Doctor Strange trailer, the latest one, dropped during the Super Bowl last night.
I haven't seen it yet.
I had to watch it on YouTube. We were flying in the airports during almost the entire game, so we didn't get to see too much.
We saw the very end. Last goal scored.
Yeah. It's going to be a pretty awesome movie.
So.
Anyways, I digress.
Yes, you do.
I do want to go ahead and point out a couple of things. Between now and our next show in a couple of weeks, we are going to be having our last tour in partnership with the John Marshall House, at least for this season. We're looking forward to doing more of them down the line, but this is the last one that we have lined up for the foreseeable future.
Yeah.
We'll see when we can get future ones on the schedule, but this will be it for now, and that is this coming Saturday. We'll have tours at 7 and 8 o'clock, starting at the John Marshall House.
And those tickets are limited because we are limited by our space in the John Marshall House.
Yep.
Also, the week after that, we have our last pub crawl for the winter, or pub hop,
if you will.
Pub hop.
And that is almost sold out.
Yeah, so we only have a few tickets left for that, so if you're interested, snatch those up right now.
Yep. And join us for a little drinky drink and some ghost stories as we move between Penny Lane Pub and the Triple Crossing Brewing there down on Fushi Street, the downtown location.
Yep. Next month, if you're coming to the Irish Hill
Churchill Irish Festival.
There we go. We will be out there. We will have a tent out there, so definitely stop by and come and see us. And other upcoming events, of course, Key West.
Yep, yes. On to Key West.
Come for another warm trip with us.
Clock's ticking. It's hard to believe that we're down to less than 10 months.
Yep.
So that is going to be a lot of fun. We're looking forward to that. There are still some rooms left, so do please check that out.
But they are going because more sales are coming through. So.
Yep. So, clock's ticking on that, and gosh, might that be it for this week?
I think that's it for right now.
If we do have anything else to share, we'll of course just go ahead and plaster it out there on social media, because why not? And if you have any questions for us between now and the next 2 weeks, drop us a line. We'd love to hear from you. Doesn't have to be just during the show. We'd love to hear from you anytime. And we also would love to see people if you can come on out and join us on one of our tours.
Yep. And since we touched on folklore, we're actually going to be doing cryptoids next time.
Cryptoids. We're finally getting to cryptoids.
We're going to be doing
now,
some cryptoids.
We've done some cryptoids before. I mean, we've done, technically werewolves.
And vampires.
And vampires
and
are...
witches.
Yep. But this is going to kind of be some of the other...
The more obscure stuff.
A little more obscure, a little more bizarre stuff. So we got a whole episode on that. That's going to be a lot of fun.
Yep. It was fun to research.
Yep. So looking forward to that. But in the meantime, we are going to go ahead and get along for this evening and probably collapse into bed because...
Yes. We're still off on the sleep schedule.
I'm working on about 4 hours right now.
Yeah.
And that morning alarm to go to work is going to be very early.
So
painfully early.
So we will catch you all for cryptoids next time.
Yep. But thanks for watching, everybody. And we will hope to talk to you all again soon.
Sounds good. Bye-bye.
Have a good night.